Well, I think it's time to kick us off. I think anybody else who can come in, I have to come in a bit late now. Um, Welcome to the Understanding Office 365 OneDrive for Business and Delve webinar. This is just part of a quick short series that we're doing on understanding all the different bits and pieces you get with Office 365, and kicking off today with OneDrive for Business and Delve. And we've lumped these two together because they interact with each other quite nicely, and hopefully I'll be able to give you a nice good understanding of everything over here. It is just myself in here today, so I will ask for any questions to be held to the end, um, and make sure that I can answer those questions for you over there. I've just seen Wayne saying that the ID is not recognized, so I'll get somebody onto that ASAP and make sure that we get the correct conference ID out for you. You can just double check um, for myself over here, be able to get that information quickly. Yeah, that ID should be the one for this conference call, but we'll get that double check and confirm with yourselves in a minute, just to make sure that everybody can hear me. But right, understanding Office 365 for Business and OneDrive. Just to give you a quick overview about myself, my name is Adriano Salmi. I'm a SharePoint consultant, and I've been working with SharePoint for about the last 6 years or so. Currently accredited. I'm part of the whole life cycle process within SharePoint, which means I usually go out with our sales guys to do pre-sales and do demonstrations to possible clients. I work with clients in actually setting up the architecture and planning everything out, doing the actual rollout, and even support and training after the fact. So I'm very much heavily involved in the SharePoint side of things. Office 365 has really expanded my role in that, because it is not really you kind of have to work with both of these together to actually to expand everything. SharePoint's starting to integrate with the whole sphere, and I think it's exactly what Microsoft wants. They want every bit and piece within Office 365 to interact with each other. So my role no longer solely sits with SharePoint, and it's kind of nice and gradually working out into the whole Office 365 stack, which is quite enjoyable. Um, let's see. OneDrive for Business and Delve. Now, these two are linked together fairly well. I'm going to cover OneDrive for Business first, and then follow on with Delve over there. Now, OneDrive for Business is an area where you can store, share, and sync your work documentation in the cloud and onto the Office 365 stack. Now, traditionally, people used to have their own U drive or a server at work where you'd have your own personal space assigned and you can store your own documentation in over there. And this is kind of replacing that whole point and giving people the ability to store their documentation in a central area that's then accessible from anywhere. Instead of the slides, what I'll do is actually jump straight into a demo over here just to give you an understanding of how OneDrive works and all the little bits and pieces that we get from it. Let's see. Right, here's our Office 365 landing page, and I'm going to jump into OneDrive from the launching ribbon at the top over there. Now, if anybody's actually used the personal OneDrive, this will look very familiar to you. The two shouldn't be confused as the same thing. They are two very, very separate components of Microsoft's offerings, with the one very much being a personal one aimed at people with a live account or a Hotmail account, where OneDrive for Business is purely part of the Office 365 stack. But it gives you a place where you can create folders, drop in documents, and then work with those documents from that point onwards. And it is fairly quick and very easy to use. All the buttons at the top over here give you a very quick, easy way of adding in documentation. So I'm going to quickly do a example over here, creating a folder and adding a document over there. So I can quite quickly create a webinar example over here. And then we've got plenty of templates that Microsoft give us. So out of the box, we can just drop in a Word document or Excel document. If I use a Word document, it'll launch Word online, and I can start working on the document in here. So very quick and easy, I can start working on this over here, automatically saving all my work. I can jump back out to my folder over here and I can see the document in over here. Now, along with just storing the document in over here, there's lots of bits and pieces that come with it. Now, the first thing I'm going to speak about is the sharing side. Now, you can see over here, on the right-hand column over here, it's set to only me. And in the main side, you can see down the side over here if I've shared the documentations or the folders with anybody else. Now, it's a very important bit to realize that anything that goes into OneDrive automatically is a private area. It is very much an area where you will store your own personal documentation. You as an end user have control over who gets to see the documentation, and even the business as a whole cannot control that. So you get this storage space. It is your U drive. You can add the documentation in over there. Which kind of leads on to the next bit about responsibility of documentation, about why you would store work documentation in OneDrive for Business when you've got things like SharePoint and new groups functionality coming to SharePoint. And the idea is that if you're going to work on a document, if you're going to be responsible for a document, maybe kicking off a tender process or starting a new document, and you're going to work on it by yourself or with a select few other people, it's a very good place to start. It's just to create it in OneDrive. Creating things in SharePoint, you tend to have stored documents that are group responsibles, like, for instance, HR documentation. It belongs to that department or belongs to the company. It doesn't belong, or the responsibility doesn't sit solely with a single person. So that's always a good place to store that documentation in SharePoint. Whereas starting on your own side of things, you can drop it in YAM and then start saving and working with it. It is easily shareable. You get a lovely little ribbon along the top over here just to give you information, so we can quickly rename the document. Backspace key, always a pain. Let's have a look again. There we go. There we go. So we rename the document over here. From this point onwards, we can actually copy it or move it to other folders within OneDrive, delete it. I can download a copy. I can generate a link to it. So if I want to send out a link to people, so you can see, create a link. I can tell them they can either edit it, a restricted link, so people can only view the document, a view link, so they can come in and actually look at the doc. So the difference between these ones over here, only specific people can look at it. Whereas if I create a view link, anybody who's got an account within Nexus can actually look at this. Edit link, anybody who's within Nexus can actually edit the document. So the link kind of opens it up to that point. So restricted link means only very specific people will be able to look at that point from there. If your tenant is also set up, you should be able to set up a link to share externally with users that are also federated with your Office 365 tenant. So there's ability to share externally, but it is very limited. And then you've got the share button over here. So at this point of view, we can actually create a document and I can share it with another user. Let's see, we want to share it with Anna. There we go. If I share this with Anna, I can tell her, Anna, instead of, so she can edit it, yeah. I'm going to share this out. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to set up permissions. So immediately I can see that Anna can work on the document over here. She's got access to the document. and she would have received an email now from me saying, here's a link to the document. Can you go on there, help me out with it, and work with it? And from this point onwards, we can start collaborating on this document at the same time together. Nice thing is, if we've got Word 2016, both of us can work on the document at the same time and actually see those updates working, which is really, really nice. And once we've actually completed and worked the document, one of the updates that are coming to OneDrive later on in the year will be the ability to move the document to an actual SharePoint site. So this will give you that ability to bridge that gap between the responsibility of the document. So you can start off and kick off the document within your own OneDrive, work with it through there, and then move it across to SharePoint, where the document will sit and reside once it's done and completed. All right, let's see. Nice thing about this is that all the files that I've stored in here, I've got a little bit of a side menu down the side over here. So it'll tell me the recent documents that I've been working on. And it also shows me, very, very importantly, is all the other documents that have been shared with me. So these, if anybody shares a document with me, I don't have to go digging through my email to find that specific email where they said, here's the document, can you work on it over here? It'll automatically show up in over here. Tell about who was last modified by, if it's a folder or if it's a document. So we can go into that and actually work with that. And then afterwards is a nice little thing called Discover. And Discover looks at all other users' OneDrives and says, if anything is there that I have permission to actually see, very importantly, you can't see anything that you don't have permissions to see, or that I might be of interest of. So if I've got permission to see it, and it's something I've either been working on, or it feels that because of the relationship with the user, it might be something that is of interest to me, it would show up in here, which is quite nice. And this is driven by the Graph, Office Graph API. And I'll have a little bit more of a chat with that when I go into Delve. Now, another nice thing about this is being able to sync OneDrive to your actual machine. Now, it was a pain point up until about the latter part of last year, where there were serious issues with the syncing. If you sync to multiple clients, some documents disappeared. There were lots of issues with this, and Microsoft actually rebuilt a brand new sync engine that allows people to sync documents directly to their machine. So on my left over here, I can actually see there's my OneDrive Nexus. We can see the webinar and the webinar example and the document in there. You can see that it's busy syncing at the moment over there. Anything I drop in or add in over here will automatically sync up. And it's nice and quick and easy way to use. So you can still use everything like you're used to using it if you had your own OneDrive or if you had your own U drive to a server. Users can still have that same experience about using it in here. A nice little trick that we have is with this new sync client, we can actually attach this to group policy and send it out to users so that when they log on to a machine, it automatically syncs their OneDrive for business with their machine. And that will help drive a bit more of the actual adoption and users actually picking up and working with OneDrive. Quite a nifty little trick. I think we might be actually pushing it out across our own systems over here just to make sure all of our users are up and running and happy with that. There's tons of little bits and pieces that go with it over here. We do have a recent activity. You can actually, this melds to whatever you're doing over here. So if I'm looking at the full area, it shows everything I've been doing on and working on. If I go to a specific document, so if we go to our webinar example over here, you can see it changes down the panel over here. And it gives you a full history of everything that's happening to it. This includes version history, so if I've got several other people working with it, then they'll go in and actually do the work, and it'll show when they've accessed and worked on the document. And then we can work with it from there. Just seeing quickly, glancing across a couple of questions popping up from Mark and James. Mark says, any ways to just map the OD rather than sync? Not really. I think the previous mapping is what was causing a lot of the issues. The sync client itself is extremely stable now, and like I said, it can be rolled out with group policy, which means it can be set up the same way you would normal personal drive. From James, what kind of backup recovery is there for OneDrive? It is all done through Microsoft's cloud servers, and the idea is that if anything does go down, the server does go down, then Microsoft will be able to reinstate that information for you. There is a recycle bin which holds any sort of deleted documentation in over there. So you've got all that information available there too. So when you do delete it, it's not a hard delete. It does stay in your recycle bin for, I think, 90 days before it gets moved away. And yeah, a couple other nice nifty bits and pieces. You can see the way you can sort it. We can actually view the documents differently as well. If you don't want to look at it as a list view, you've got the ability to look at it in these little tiles, which are quite nice. And it's also a really good place to store all the OneNotes for anybody who has who's picked up and is using OneNote. Having a central place to store that works really, really well. William asks, is it possible to prevent syncing to certain machines? Not a helpful feature in a school where people use different machines every time they log on. I'm a bit unsure on that. I think that would be down to the group policy and the way that's set up. But I can definitely find out for you and provide you with an answer after the fact. Right, jumping back so we can carry on. Let's see. Slide. Nice thing is also you can access this from any device. There's a web interface for this that can be accessed on any mobile device. But on top of the fact, we've also got apps for every single, for all the spheres. So we've got one for Windows Mobile, Android, and for iPhones. Funnily enough, at a couple of Microsoft's events in the last year, on all the actual roadmap and Rails tracks, we've seen the iPad and the iPhone and the mobile phones, their development plans are ahead of any other development plans. So Microsoft's really trying to be as agnostic as possible when it comes to the hardware that you're trying to access Office 365 on. And the apps are great. They're quite stable, very highly rated, and available from the App Store to be able to click onto both your personal OneDrive and the work OneDrives. That's a very quick overview of OneDrive. Just to switch into Delve now. Before I start talking about Delve, I want to speak about the Office Graph. Now, the Office Graph is an API that works in the background. That's a very intelligent and sophisticated machine learning technique that tries to connect you to the relevant documents, conversations, and people around you. And the way it works is it works on these three actions of an actor, an edge, and an object. The actor generally is yourself or the person that is viewing or working on the point. The edge is the interaction with the object. And to give you a bit more of a worldly example over here, the actor over here in the middle, the edge is the actual interaction she's having with the object. So we can have Anna in the middle over here, and her interaction with a Word document is that she viewed the Excel document over there, or that she's worked with another person, or that somebody's presented something to her. And the idea is that the Graph API, the Office Graph API, will rank up and actually measure every single one of these interactions you have with all the different people, the different Word documents, emails, conversations, all around within the Office 365 environment. And then it weights them, giving you an importance to every single interaction. And what it's able to do with this is in Delve is actually lift up and show you anything that might be of interest to you or important to you. Now, we actually saw that interaction with OneDrive, where when we clicked on Discover, what it was doing is it was looking at specific documents and how they were done. So this is a popular document. This is one that we've worked on with David Holmes and several other people. And it's actually, the documents at the top are the more important documents that it's actually working with and displaying to you. So the idea is that every time you go into this, is that it's going to look slightly different. Now, if we actually look at Delve, the first page you're going to get are these cards, and these are all different types of interactions that have come through from the whole Office 365 environment. So it's not just looking at my own OneDrive, it's looking at other users' OneDrives. It's looking at the planner, Cloud Planner. It's looking at Exchange, it's looking at Yammer, and pulling up all this information and displaying it to you. I mean, Delve has kind of replaced the original My Sites of SharePoint. You've still got your own section over here where you can see who you are, all the contact details, who my managers are, all those details, and also documentation from around that area. I also have my own blog that I can create information from. But the idea is that you get a landing page, an area where you can look at all this information. And every time you get there, it is something new and something fresh for you. But it's not just arbitrary. It is things that you are interacting with and working with. So I was working on the SharePoint overview one earlier today. So notice the fact that I was working on this makes it important. My expenses for last month, the support services that I'm currently working on with one of the sales managers. These are all documents that we were working on together that are stored in OneDrive. And it knows the importance of these documentations. The nice thing is actually, if you've been using OneDrive for Business and haven't really touched on Delve because you didn't already know it was, it's all been working in the background. So I highly recommend just popping in there and having a look and seeing what's showing and how it's working with you. It's really, really nice and impressive. The idea is also you can create boards and add these documents to these boards. You can favorite and follow the documents, which gives them even more importance. And it kind of adds up a really nice section to these type of things and gives you this home page that is very, very functional. Now, on my Delve over here, unfortunately, we're on a different lower SKU, but on the higher SKU, there's also Delve Analytics. Because Office Graph is already picking up on everywhere that you're going and seeing your interactions within Exchange Online, within OneDrive, within Yammer, it kind of starts picking up on where you start spending most of your time. And Delve Analytics will give you the ability to look and see, all right, I'm spending most of my time in Exchange when I really shouldn't be. I should be working on the documents over there. And it can give you an idea of where you need to work on and how you need to push your time to try and work on them. And it's very useful in an open environment. I think anybody who starts screaming Big Brother might have a bit of an issue with it, but it is just analytics on what you are doing within the environment. And it's very, very nice, very, very easy. And the nice thing is there's no setup required. It's all busy. It's all there already working for you and available to you. Oh, let's have a quick catch up on the comments over here. No, not yet. All right. Like I said, this is supposed to be just a very, very quick overview. I'm going to jump back to our presentation. I'm going to open up for questions in a minute just to see if there's any quick questions that have come across your head. But before I do that, I do want to say we have a training offer at the moment, a Microsoft Office 365 end user training course. This isn't like the boring click here type of thing, type of do that. It is the one that picks up on all these little niche bits and pieces, like OneDrive for Business and Delve. But it also looks at Skype for Business, the web office, the online version, OneNote, Outlook, Yammer, news feeds, the video portal that's now available, and also looking at SharePoint. This course will be running on the dates of the year, the 10th to the 11th of August. The recommended price usually is £550 per person, but we are running this at £425 per person plus VAT. So by all means, get in touch with us if this is interesting to you. This is very much for the end user, and it's one of the biggest, I think one of the biggest issues lots of companies have is getting buy-in from their users to go into Office 365 and use it successfully. And getting a couple of users to get onto this course and actually, understand what is it that you get with Office 365. What do all those little buttons at the top mean? That is very, very, it's very, sorry, lost for word of you. Inducive. It'll work well in helping people merge and actually use your Office 365 environment. And definitely get in touch with us. There's a link at the bottom over there. I'll leave that up in a minute.